Kerst Maha, I think we'll just get underway. Hello, agus fáilte gaibh ula, as you know, toliche vi call the rave son in session in Jew. Hello and a very warm welcome to you all. We are delighted to be with you for this session. My name is Maeve McKinnon. I'm Senior Education Officer, Gaelic Education at Education Scotland. And leading us through this session today are Jim Whannell, Director of Education at Bòrd Gaelic, and colleagues from North Ayrshire Council, who Jim will introduce. And we very much appreciate their presence for the session today. Before I hand over to Jim, I'd like to just run through some protocols which will help to ensure that everyone has a positive experience. Firstly, just to remind everyone that this session is being recorded. Please keep microphones and possibly cameras too, if it does help sometimes to support bandwidth, and also helps with keeping interference in the background to a minimum. Please feel free though to participate in the session, use the chat pane to pose questions, any comments, and also to share any resource links that you feel will be helpful and useful. Please also use the chat pane to alert us to any technical issues you may be having. And if you do drop out, just join back in, leave and join back in. There's also the Speak Easy support chat function in the SLF portal that you can access too. If you use Twitter, please tweet about this session and use the hashtag SLF online. And last but not least, please enjoy the session. I'm now going to hand you over to Jim and colleagues who will lead us through it. Thank you. Tack believe.
Morning tang, Maeve, agus Matthew var ula cúideach and Matthew Shaw. Developing new Gaelic medium provision in North Ayrshire. Hope this will be an enjoyable and informative run through some of the really important issues which we all worked on as a team. So I would encourage, just as Maeve has said, if everybody puts questions or comments they have in the chat bar, we'll make sure that as a team we return and give you some feedback and some of your comments or answer any questions. That's how we'll end the session. So our Maeve has already gone through some of those issues around just maintaining some of the structure to the session, and you'll see that there. I don't intend to go over that further. Developing new GME provision. It's interesting to note that North Ayrshire is the first authority for many years to do this, and we look forward to other authorities developing Gaelic medium education in the forthcoming years. So this is particularly important at this point to stop and just to look at how that was developed. So the aims of the session to review the steps taken by the LA, the school team and the board in setting up this new provision, look at successes and challenges, and identify some future new steps which we think will promote further Gaelic medium education in North Ayrshire. Myself, Angela Cassels, Senior Education Manager in North Ayrshire, Lynn Robertson, Head Teacher, and Marit Nichniel, Príomh Hichad, Principal Teacher at Whitehurst. And as I said earlier, we will leave some time for questions and comments at the end. So the context for the development of Gaelic medium education nationally and in North Ayrshire is the statutory guidance on Gaelic education, and you'll see a link to that. That's the national context within which we develop Gaelic medium education as an asset to every local authority and as part of the enrichment of the curriculum for all pupils. North Ayrshire decided, you'll note there, to proceed without going to full assessment. The statutory guidance has a set of tasks for local authority and for other agencies in deciding how to move Gaelic medium requests forward. And it's interesting that in this context, North Ayrshire focused on how rather than whether, and I think that's something very commendable for the authority. It meant that the board, the local authority, and the school team was immediately focused on the tasks in hand and how we were going to do this, rather than spending some time on whether, and that can sometimes be very time consuming for both the local authority and for the board and other agencies. Rather than focusing on whether, the authority went straight into how. Throughout the process, the role of the education team at Bòrd na Gaelic, and it's important to just clarify that, is to provide everyone, local authority officers, school team, parents, with professional advice and support on all issues relating to Gaelic medium education. It would be important for local authority officers, for school teams, for anybody viewing this session to be absolutely relaxed. There is no such thing as a daft question, or we are very happy to work with all people who are working on developments like this, and we take it from wherever you are and wherever your knowledge base is. So no one should feel nervous about raising things that they think might be not readily understood, or something which might require further amplification, which they think might just be a simple thing. Just raise anything with us, and we're very happy to respond and to support. Some core inputs from the board. Working with parents, absolutely crucial and a really essential element in a project like this, because Gaelic medium education is a community-based thing which meets the needs of parents who are seeking to have their children educated through the medium of Gaelic. So a local group of parents with preschool children received support from the Bòrd Early Years team. The board no longer has an early years team. It has a national strategic officer for early years work, but there is a new project, a national pilot project, which is operating in some local authorities. And if you want further information about that, contact Maggie at Common and Parent through that address there. An interesting and very productive element it was that I attended, and obviously Angela supported the school too, but we attended the Parent Council meeting in Whitehurst Primary School along with the senior management team, and that was a very productive opportunity to discuss with parents who are already in the school, in the English medium delivery of the school, what Gaelic medium would be. So it's important to be cognizant of the fact that Gaelic medium is a developmental thing for parents who are seeking Gaelic medium education, but it's also an informative thing for English medium parents and for other people in North Ayrshire who might have an interest in what Gaelic medium is and how it may or may not impact on English medium. Liaison meetings with the head teacher and DHT as part of the preparation process, and they were extremely professional in the way that they approached the development of Gaelic medium in their own school and in the authority, and you'll see that when Myra and the head teacher go further in their presentation about some of the key aspects of this. Some core inputs from the board. Working with the local authority team, additional support for the LA officer, Angela, through planning meetings and emails. And again, just to reinforce that we would be available, the education team at Bòrd na Gaelic, to support the local authority and lead officers in a whole range of things which may impact positively on the project. A key element of that, as we all know, is ensuring that funding streams support the aims and priorities of the local authority and of the local senior leadership team in the school. And a key aspect of that is Scottish Government support, and that two principal zones there to look at would be the Capital Fund, which speaks for itself. It's about adaptations that might be beneficial within a school to support the development of Gaelic medium education, and there were some adaptations supplied for Whitehurst, and the specific grant scheme. And obviously that many local authority officers will already be aware of the specific grant scheme is, but there's an additionality when you're looking at developing educational delivery, and the specific grant scheme is an important asset for local authority officers when they're looking at how to finance a development like this. Very happy to talk further if anybody has any specific questions around either Capita Fund or specific grant scheme and how they have been used in different authorities. Okay, Angela, would you like to inform people of some of the hints and tips which you think would be useful from a local authority perspective, and then I'll come back in and we'll look at some vision for where the project might go.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Angela Cassell, Senior Manager, North Ayrshire, and I was given responsibility for Gaelic provision. I had absolutely no experience of this beforehand, so I thought, as Jim has mentioned today, just to inform you of some of the key factors that helped us in the process of setting up the Gaelic unit. In the early days, before I had responsibility for Gaelic, I do know that one of the successes was the efficient running of the parental consultation exercise and the verification of results. So part of the team liaised with all interested individuals during the process, and therefore the decision was made to proceed without going to full assessment. I work closely with our infrastructure team, and there's a couple of key points that are worthy of mention here. Careful planning regarding the optimal location. Firstly, we wanted a central position within North Ayrshire, taking into consideration the geography of our local authority. So North Ayrshire comprises towns and some rural villages. We had to consider transport in terms of pupils, but also in terms of the new post of Gaelic teacher being advertised, and we wanted to make that an attractive employment opportunity. So on that note, we advertised for a principal teacher post as opposed to a class teacher post, because we wanted the successful candidate to be part of the leadership team in the school, and also to acknowledge the level of responsibility around curriculum development. And I know Lynn, the head teacher, will expand on that process later on. Co-winning, because of its centrality, was selected, and also it has excellent rail links as well. But we also needed a school with sufficient space to be able to house the unit. And importantly, we needed a leadership team that were forward thinking and had the vision and values in terms of working collaboratively to provide a new opportunity for children in North Ayrshire at heart. And as a result, Lynn and her team at Whitehurst Park were approached, and she will let you know how that felt and how that worked out later on. I spoke to the infrastructure team and asked what advice they would give to other local authorities based on their experience. And one of the key issues was simply to ensure sufficient lead-in time to facilitate any works required. So although we had a school with space, there were still adaptations to be made to ensure it was fit for purpose and ready for our first children entering. The partnership with the board and Jim in particular was invaluable for us, bearing in mind this was a first, and no one in our authority had any experience of a venture such as this. So to be able to learn from that experience that the board had in their work across Scotland, and to find out what the expectations on us would be and how we effectively tackle any obstacles, was key to supporting us in progressing this work. Personally and professionally, the support we had was both strategic and operational, and that for me is what made it so valuable. We needed that mix to ensure that it was something that was going to work best for our young people. I don't think we've probably ever thanked you properly, Jim. Maybe I should do that now. Jim was a great support to the local authority and the school in a wealth of ways, and even he's mentioned himself, even to the extent of meeting with parents at a parent council meeting in Whitehurst, where the Gaelic provision was going to be. In terms of transport policy, we did apply for funding from the Gaelic specific grant to support this. I've disappeared, but never mind, I don't know where I am. In the long term, it's important to be aware that there is a need for the Gaelic schools or units transport policy to be covered in the authority's overarching transport policy, and that was something that was key for us in the local authority. In terms of developing new relationships, I've mentioned the Gaelic specific grant, and our community and learning development partners in the authority had been applying and using this forum for projects for some time. But now it became a collaborative education and communities application. Now, I feel I've been exceptionally lucky in this case because the relationships developed with the two key people I work with on this in communities are great, and actually we've benefited and the school have benefited from their supportive approach. In terms of the grant, and this is probably getting into a wee bit of the nitty-gritty, but the things that we found that worked for us were meeting with our finance team together as communities and education, aligning budget lines. It sounds simple and common sense, but it made quite a difference for us, and arranging periodic meetings when it's time to review or apply for funding so that we have that collaborative approach that we obviously didn't have before we had the Gaelic provision. In terms of communications, and in addition to this, BBC Alba did a great piece on our unit, and we liaised with our own communications team to ensure that parents knew that Gaelic provision was now an opportunity for them. Small things to remember were for us to update our council website, to liaise with our placing requests team within the local authority, and promote the process so that we're making it as easy as possible for parents to apply. So to sum up my experience, really, I think regular communication with a breadth of people made this a fairly simple process for North Ayrshire. And I'm fortunate because I work with people who focus on it, and Jim's mentioned this, how we deliver, and we've got a proactive problem-solving approach as opposed to focusing on obstacles. And that I think that factor alone made the process very straightforward for us.
Great, thanks, Angela. And I think key message there is, if we could sum it all up, is working together was really just the way we worked on this. All of us working as a team, and as Angela's mentioned there, the different teams that fed into some of the work Angela did and I supported and the school team did. I'll just run through some ideas and some notions that Angela and I thought would be important to talk to people around about where we might go and what kind of vision there might be. And after that, we'll hear from the school team. So continuing board support regarding staffing and other issues. It's not the case that the Bòrd education team would just withdraw and there wouldn't be any support. We're here to support the North Ayrshire development in any way that's possible. Cultural development. Gaelic Medium Education is really enriched by relatively easy access to cultural extension. Gaelic Medium Education is set within the Gaelic language and culture, and it's part of the enrichment that young children get is that there is this additionality culturally, so that's something to continue to build. Early years development, and Maggie at Common and Parent would be very happy to support anyone who has questions or queries about how an early years vision can be linked to a GME primary provision, as we would be as well, of course. Future vision for the secondary GME is ahead of some years down the line, but it's part of that 3 to 18 model, having a vision for that 3 to 18 model, and North Ayrshire's already begun to reflect on what that might look like. 1+2 modern languages development, in other words, Gaelic becomes embedded in North Ayrshire's curriculum offer as part of the delivery. And Gaelic as an L3 in English medium schools would be a natural development because the additional interest in the language which comes from GME development. Promoting GME further, and Angela and I have talked about some things we might be able to do this session, promoting GME, and continue to review staffing and support regarding acquiring additional funding support. Always an issue and always something which we all want to work with together. Anybody who has questions or comments or anything like that, just put them in the chat bar, and I'll now turn to the team at Whitehurst, who did a fantastic job in actually delivering what Angela and I have been talking about. So over to yourselves, Lynn and Myrid.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Robertson, the head teacher at Whitehurst Park Primary School, and I think our presentation is just uploading at the moment. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Thank
Yes.
you. So, as Angela alluded to, I can remember the conversation quite clearly with my senior manager around about October, November 2019, and she said to me, so I've got something else to tell you as part of this visit. And when I heard those words, to be honest, I thought, oh no, we're going to be inspected or something. When she told me that I was going to be the head teacher of North Ayrshire's Gaelic provision, opening to primary ones in August 2020, I will admit it was actually the last thing I expected. I tried to look for a wee graphic to explain my emotional response to this, and I found the amazement cycle, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. And the first three words in the amazement cycle certainly resonated with me. I was bewildered. Here. Why? I was worried. I knew nothing about Gaelic medium education and how do you start a school from scratch. Then I became intrigued, and of course I started Googling to deepen my own understanding and started stalking some Gaelic schools out there to further my understanding. And with the support of North Ayrshire and Bòrd Gaelic, I eventually became excited and inspired. And with regards to the last two emotional responses, I can honestly say I was never bored or annoyed during the process. What seemed like was going to be an enormous task with the added complication of school closure came together as North Ayrshire supported us with resourcing, procurement, and we had a tremendous amount of support from Jim and Bòrd Gaelic. And our school team worked together, and the provision was proudly opened in August 2020. So, how did we get to this point in August 2020 with the added complication, of course, of a global pandemic and school closure? There were a number of key tasks that we undertook, and I'm going to take you through some of those with some tips as well. So the first thing, as I'd alluded to earlier, was understanding. The first thing myself and my deputy embarked on was to further our understanding of what Gaelic medium education is. We had several really helpful meetings with Jim. We visited Gaelic provision in East Ayrshire, and we met with potential families as well. We spent time familiarising ourselves with statutory guidance, and this was made so much easier with the help of Bòrd Gaelic. The next undertaking, with the support of North Ayrshire, of course, was the recruitment. I had concerns about who would be out there, who would want to come to co-winning. And there were a few things that North Ayrshire Council did that I feel that ensured that the recruitment process was successful. So the post was advertised just after Christmas time, and it was for a PT, which immediately made this a much more attractive post. And I was relieved as well because I knew that I would have key leadership support too. We did attract a few candidates, and we were able to appoint Myrid McNeill, and she would be starting in April to work with me to establish the provision and plan in time for it opening up in August. So this gave us a term to plan what the provision would look like, how it would run, and to procure resources. We also had the support from a Gaelic speaking PT during the interview process to assess the candidate's Gaelic language. As to be honest, that is way beyond my skill set. So my tips would be employ a PT to attract candidates and lead the provision, and to start at least a term before the provision starts to ensure it's smoothly planned. The next thing within our school, Angela had talked about the location within North Ayrshire. We had to think about where would be the best location within our school. So we wanted to consider a place that could facilitate potential expansion as the provision grew. And we also wanted to consider entrance near to the car park, as all pupils that we knew were potentially going to be coming would be bussed in from outside the school catchment area for at least the first year. So we decided on an area that had been an extension consisting of 2 classrooms and a small breakout area which would facilitate early learning too. The next thing we had to consider was spreading the word. We embarked on spreading the word from January in a variety of ways. Within our own school community, we held assemblies to help the pupils understand and to welcome our new pupils. I was very keen that the provision would be viewed as just another class within our school. We invited Jim to a parent council meeting, which allowed them to ask questions and allowed them really to clear up any misconceptions that they had about Gaelic within the school. The school website was updated to include Gaelic language and information about enrolling pupils, and we had new signage both externally and internally integrating Gaelic throughout the school. So communication and awareness was a priority, and it continues to be a priority for the following session. The next thing we looked at was transition. And just as Myrid was about to start as PT and embark on resourcing and transition for our new pupils, the pandemic hit and we were closed. So really for a term, Myrid and I never actually met in the flesh. We met during the interview, and the rest of the time we met virtually. But Myrid did an amazing job in terms of transition, and which allowed us also to be fully resourced and ready to go to start in August 2020. So I'm going to pass over to Myrid now.
Thank you, Lynn. So Martin Va, hello Dunya, good morning everybody, and my name is Myrid McNeill, and I was appointed as the principal teacher for the Gaelic department here at Boonscall Park, Whitehurst. I started the position in April 2020, and as a result of the global pandemic, I started the department from home. So I was meeting the school staff and the wider community through Microsoft Teams and communicating through emails and phone calls. During the initial phase of setting up the department, I met with Bòrd Gaelic Education Director Jim and Bòrd Gaelic's Education Manager Joanne, and they provided information about the progress that had been made in the lead up to my appointment, and I was given some advice and support towards creating a Gaelic policy for the department. Following on from this meeting, I also met with Bòrd Gaelic's early years support worker, Sheena, and Sheena was able to provide me with information about the parent group that had organised the Gaelic playgroup in North Ayrshire. Having met with the school staff and liaised with Bòrd Gaelic, it was time to build some positive relationships with the children and families entering Boonscall Park, Whitehurst. I'd planned, created and recorded a range of transition videos to share with the children and families on a weekly basis. And each of the videos included an activity for the children to complete, and then for parents to send back some photographic evidence that I could then feed back on. Once I had created a link with the children and families, the next step was to create a motivating environment effective for learning. I worked with a sign company to create bilingual signs for the school playground, and this ensured that the school environment was welcoming and inclusive to both learners in the mainstream department and learners in the Gaelic stream department. I also contacted Storlin, who are responsible for the production and distribution of Gaelic educational resources throughout Scotland, and they provided some resources for literacy and some resources for numeracy. Since opening the department, the children at Boonscall Park, Whitehurst have been making good progress, and they've experienced the benefits of digital technology. We connected with eSchool for live Leif Lelinda sessions, and this was a great opportunity for the children to experience Gaelic being used in the wider community, and also the opportunity to see other Gaelic learners from schools across Scotland taking part in the same session. I've also made partnerships with Comin na Gaelic, and their digital communication and communities officer, Alice, has successfully hosted an online after-school chat session with the children. I've also partnered with Gàidhlig so that learners can access a range of Gaelic storybooks online with their personal username and password. A challenge has been the ability to engage fully with parents and families due to the restrictions. However, we have addressed this by creating a class blog on Glow. I uploaded pictures and videos of children's learning both in the classroom and outdoors, and provided useful educational links that would support parents and children's Gaelic language learning at home. And parents also had the opportunity to leave comments on photographs that are on the blog. To ensure that the parents had the opportunity to actively engage in their children's learning and to enable our learners to reach their full potential in reading, I have created a group on Microsoft Teams, and it was after school. Families could come on and I was able to offer them support with the pronunciation of Gaelic words and their understanding in the children's reading books. And then to build the school's profile and connect with the wider community, again, I've also created a school Twitter page, sharing some of the learning that happened within the class. And now that we've completed our first year at Boonscoil Park Whitehurst, our next steps and looking ahead for the Gaelic stream, we're hoping to employ a Gaelic speaking pupil support assistant just to ensure that we are able to comply fully with the advice for Gaelic medium education provided by Education Scotland, and also able to follow the statutory guidance provided by Bòrd na Gaelic. We are soon welcoming our first Gaelic speaking student, which is a great opportunity for the learners to experience another adult conversing with them fluently in Gaelic. We are also connecting with East Ayrshire's Gaelic Medium Education provisions called na Nui for moderation and sharing effective practice in literacy. And we'll be linking with Comin na Parent to create our parent group. And finally, we'll continue to promote Gaelic medium education in North Ayrshire by advertising in local newspapers with support from Bòrd na Gaelic, and also to provide further information to the nurseries, provide information about Gaelic medium education, the nurseries within North Ayrshire. Thank you for listening, and I'll pass you back to Jim now for any questions. Pupils.
Morning, thank you, Kirsten. I guess many thanks for that. And as you can see, everyone who's reflecting upon this, the success of this project really lies in three major factors, I think, which is the support that the education team at Bòrd na Gaelic can provide, the effectiveness of the local authority and the partnership with the local authority, and of course the competence which is shining forth within Whitehurst Primary itself, the senior leadership team, and the new GME principal teacher there, and the practical work that they did to develop the project within the school there. So it's like three component parts which really worked very, very well in North Ayrshire, so commendation to everybody. We have some time if anyone has any questions, comments they'd like to make. If you'd like to use the chat bar, that would be useful, or to put a question in the chat bar, or just use the raise hand facility on Teams too. Does anyone have any comments or questions they would like to immediately pose for us? Very happy to do that. Give people a couple of seconds longer.
Jim, Hakesh
Yes.
did nog aan zijn chat. We have a question in the chat. Ashona Feinach, Kafit scholar a hacker van Draste aan zijn school. How many pupils do you have in the school at the provision at the moment?
Would you like to answer that, Lynn?
Sure. We have 6 pupils at the moment. We have 2 primary ones, 3 primary 2s and 1 primary 3.
Great. I think one of the interesting issues about that is people who are aware of the statutory guidance will know that the statutory guidance, the process for assessment starts when there are 5 children of school age seeking Gaelic medium education. That was the position in North Ayrshire that North Ayrshire decided there were 5 children at that point. And they decided to, as I say, move from whether to how after 5 children were identified seeking Gaelic medium education. So that's an interesting part of the equation, because it also displays the vision of North Ayrshire, that North Ayrshire was confident and was aware that Gaelic medium education would grow. And that's the position we are in now, looking at growth rather than whether. So it wasn't that there were a very large number of children. We started from a relatively small base, and we're now looking towards how the board, the local authority and the school can develop the provision further. Something yeah, Maeve?
Jim, I'm just aware of the time, and we have another question I'd like to pose come from Maggie Wentworth, because we will be cut off at 10:45. And Maggie's asking, at what stage in the process should the local authority consider provision of the 1140 hours in Gaelic?
Angela, would you like to comment a bit on that from the authority perspective, and I can add anything after you've made some comments?
Just at the moment, that's something that we haven't considered at the moment, just due to numbers and the fact that our authority are only just rolling out 1140 finally at the moment. It is something that we do need to consider and we do need to review in the future. I'm not sure where we stand, Jim. It would be good to have a wee bit of advice in terms of other local authorities and how they've found that.
Yeah. I think what's an interesting aspect of the dynamic in North Ayrshire is effectively there was Parentis Passionate playgroup, there was early, not nursery school. Sometimes this isn't the way it works in other authorities, where there might be early years playgroup, then nursery, and then primary provision. That was not what happened in North Ayrshire. It was essentially playgroup provision and then moving to primary provision, which is superb. What now lies on the table, and as Angela's identified there, is reflection on how we develop early years nursery that would link with the primary provision as part of that 3 to 18 model. So the 3 to 5 bit now requires some reflection, and Angela and I have begun to think about how that might work. It's maybe slightly atypical that North Ayrshire moved with the playgroup provision into primary provision, but that happens in other places too, and it has happened in other places. So the response, Maggie, would be yes, that needs to be looked at now, and that's part of this developmental process of looking at a 3 to 18 vision for GME in North Ayrshire. One thing I just would add, and I am conscious of the time, Maeve, is what has been really commendable and really important is that North Ayrshire looked at this as authority provision. This was not you know, a part of North Ayrshire. It was North Ayrshire as an authority providing provision for the people who live in North Ayrshire through the medium of Gaelic, and that's an important aspect of the project. It's authority provision within a particular school. Maeve, I'm seeing another comment there that from, I think there was another comment there, or is that the same one from Sean? I think it might be. Any further questions? I'm conscious of, I think we have about 2 minutes. Okay, if we thank everybody in attendance. Maeve, I know you want to make some final comments at the end, and we would certainly reiterate that we're available, the Bòrd education team, and I'm sure Angela will be very happy as well to, if any local authority officers, I know she's already done it for some other local authorities, provide input if that would be required. Thanks very much, Morantang, Agus, Maeve.
Yeah, just to reiterate, Tapalaivula, it's been really interesting and informative to hear about this very positive development for Gaelic education in North Ayrshire, which really has been undertaken in the most unprecedented times. And actually very much look forward to seeing the development of this provision and how it grows in the future. So Tapalive, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for your time this morning.